Welcome to the B&G Railroad, a Bennett and Garrison collaboration. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alright, the first step we took is we had to map out what we wanted on the train layout. So Mr. Brad made us draw a sheet of paper, draw each tree where we wanted scenery, where we wanted buildings, where we wanted railroad, and we copied it to a software. I used Trains Simulator to make mountains, to do whatever we wanted and see what stuck. And then we presented to Mr. Brad and see what he wanted. What we decided on was having a dog bone shaped layout with one loop of track crossing over 2 points. So we have one loop going around the perimeter, crossing over at a point to the right of the layout, and then another loop going through that crosses over itself on what is called a diamond in the middle. You'll see what a diamond is later in the video. But now that we have it mapped out, it's time to start shoveling the granite. More specifically, 3 tons of granite. So we started at about, I'd say 10 in the morning. We shoveled granite all day, shoveling granite into the wheelbarrow, taking it down to the layout, spreading it all around the perimeter, doing the crossover and everything. And we did that for about 2 or 3 days till it was all gone. And then what was left, we shoveled it to the back of the layout so we'd have reserves per se. And something like this. And the next step is now to tamp down all the ballast, make it even and level so we can start laying out the track. Easy enough, just makes just a little harder thing to do, takes a little bit more time. Once we were done tamping down the ballast, we started laying out track to see how much track we would need and how many connectors we needed. We needed well over 300 connectors, so we started connecting those in. The process to placing in the connectors was very tedious, and due to a lot of inconveniences, this took well over a year to get this all figured out.
Putting in the final coat of ballast to make the railroad secure. Got it secure and they're ready to run trains.
Okay, so it was a little more complicated than that. First, we had to replace shoddy connections, then we'd have to find the right power supply and power cord, and then we'd replace more connections, and this went on for a couple months. But eventually we got it running. The following shots are from real trains, an open house showcase, and our trains. What you're about to see is a real diamond used by a real train. The track the train is on right now is called the A line, the Old Atlantic Coast Line. Railroad. And the track he's crossing is the S-Line, the old Seaboard Airline. Now, CSX owns both of these, but back in the day, they were used to intersect railroads. We're not using it to intersect railroads. We're using ours to run a loop, but that's the same point, it's the same reason. You get to cross them over without needing to use too much track and too much of a headache. Here's one of the layouts we look to for inspiration for working on our railroad. And here's our railroad. Before we run trains, we have a checklist to do, like cleaning out the track, making sure nothing's in the track, make sure nothing is stuck in the wheels or the flanges of the train and the cars, making sure that there's no animal marks floating around the track, and then we check the transformer box to see if there's any defects in that, and if not, then we're ready to go and run trains. Now the final step was installing the buildings. So the first thing we did was we put the coal tipple down right here. It's usually stationed to have tracks running in the coal tipple, but we haven't gone that far yet. That'll be in a future extension. I'd also like to add that Mr. Brad scratch built all of these buildings himself. Next we have the Bennett Water Tower, again built by Mr. Brad. Stationed to the little left of the layout, still front and center for everyone to see. Really cool one. Next is a house, stationed right to the left of the dog bone. In order to install all these buildings, first we have to put, obviously, decomposed granite there, just so it has something to sit on. Which is a very, very good idea, considering that we'll probably need to run the electricity wires through something so we can cover it up with the granite. Next is one of my favorite buildings, Brad's Bar. This is a really cool building, especially the way it's scratch built. The attention to detail is insane. Everything looks really real, really carefully sculpted, and really, really well made. Next is the lumber mill, Carroll's Lumber Building Supplies. Stationed towards the rear of the layout, one of the more interesting things is the little pieces of wood, and those wood sheds were actually real wood, cut in little teeny tiny pieces on the saw. And finally, the station, the most important and, in my opinion, best building on the layout. The Bennett Station's attention to detail is nuts at how good it looks, the working lights and everything. Alright, that just about does it. Huge thanks to Mr. Brad and Miss Carroll for letting us work on the railroad and letting us do this stuff for 2 years now. Couldn't done it without them. Huge thanks to them. And happy birthday, Miss Carroll.